basically under as a flat roof, but it was built with the hopes of maybe building a secondary accessory apartment to the house. It fast forward, the mother's moving into California and would like to see the plan come to fruition. 43 Sylvan Road resides in an area that's also zone for there are many other multifamily dwelling units within this circle. One resides as 3 families to the left of her. I think the house right of her is a single family, very, very long ranch. It's actually a double lot. And I informed her of that prior to actually doing prior to construction. She wanted to waive that. She would rather the bigger lot, and that's why it was always an option to add an accessory apartment. But now the family dynamics have changed. One mother wants to be out with her grandchildren and family. She has a brother that's also local. We come before you with this plan permit, and it should be known that we're not asking for any variances. Just looking for a straight permit. It's a 1-bedroom apartment, a living room, bedroom, and kitchen. With an added 3rd-bay garage underneath this apartment. It's 1 story. To meet the egresses, everything meets the building code. Not looking for any relief there as well.
Town water, town sewer.
Town water. We did have a meeting, I think it was back in February, sewer commission, to confirm that it is served by town sewer. She has an existing 3-bedroom home, and their threshold is a 4-bedroom home, so it didn't go over that threshold, so they were fine.
Yes, if you're in the multifamily zone, why are you seeking a special permit?
Because I was denied by the building inspector because a special permit for an accessory dwelling is permitted by the zone. I had the same.
Yeah.
I filed it after a couple of weeks. I asked, followed up where it stood on permit status, and he said it's granted by the zone.
Great.
However, if you want to kick it right back to the building department, it's saving me a month.
Is that an multifamily zone, or is it just, I think there was 2 places, one on the corner and the one beside hers that we approved before.
I know we did on the
The
corner.
one on the corner we approved, this and accessory apartment, right, and then the one next door to,
We just did one recently.
I don't know if the multifamily zone is the same.
Yeah,
But we've
I know the
done a couple of-
multifamily goes up Sterling Road and Gosling.
Right.
And
It's just that one.
so,
But we have been,
yeah, so.
2 of them approved in that area.
There's
that's-
next to me, and then there's another one.
Yeah, I took pictures of multiple buildings.
Yeah, I took a ride down there and it's really a no-brainer. So you're gonna build on top of the 2-car garage that's to the left. You're gonna
We're
put,
gonna add a 3rd, and then there's the big cross house.
and then you're gonna put up 1 floor, 1 story.
And they look like they have the plot plan,
Yeah,
21.1.
Yeah.
108.
yeah, they meet all the dimensions, and then the college
Right. Pieces
land is
over there.
back there,
Right.
yeah. Gonna give us the dimensions. What are the dimensions of the addition, Kurt?
It's about 950 square feet. Actual,
That's what I'm reading, but it looks like 30 feet.
the new addition is 16.6 by 30 feet.
Yeah.
30.
That's the 1-car, the new 1-car underneath.
Maybe this is the multifamily zone.
The back of the 2-car garage is there.
It is.
I thought it was.
Yeah,
But it's
I
like,
think
okay.
it just looked, it is, for sure.
Permission with the building inspector. It's a no-brainer, we can just,
Yeah.
that home's been there more than 5 years.
1951.
Remain owner occupied. So I'm gonna be for one person,
Huh?
one person,
In
one,
it,
and
yeah.
moving in.
Yeah.
Usually, yeah.
I'm just going through the,
The checklist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Child sewer, parking. I think it's a great idea. And more people should have their in-laws living with them.
Yeah, which might sound about my house, but I can live there.
And that's what I did. It's the way it should be.
With grandkids.
Yeah.
So I'll start with thank you. So I'll open up to public comments, starting in the room, and then go to online if there are any. So any comments from the public in the room? Yes. If you can stand up, say your name, address, etc. Thank you.
I'm Tom Forehand, 131 Sylvan Road, we've never met. And my question, I have absolutely no problem with somebody building, on their property.
Could you repeat your last name, please?
Forehand, F-O-R-H-A-N. But my question comes in because I realize there are multi, down there. And my fear is I've been on the road for 40 years, is it used to be all single family residential, and now I see a lot more going to two family. And my concern is really not for, what happens with there, it's, like the house next door used to be owner occupied. Wasn't old when they sold it, and it's gone down and been trouble since. The reason why people who owned your house moved. And I just see, is there any controls in place that prevent that from growing? I never knew there was a two-story residential neighborhood or something.
Yeah, multifamily.
Multi-family.
Yeah.
Multi-family. Basically runs from Main Street, from Sterling Road, George Hill,
Goss
then
Lane.
Goss Lane, back up to Goss Lane, down that.
So even my.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything that has to be owner occupied in relationship?
If we grant this special permit, the special permit says that it will be owner occupied. So the special permit will be applicable to her ownership.
And is there any checks and balances in place that says that if at some point in time, you move into the one and then rent the big house or change that to 2 apartments, or is that not an issue?
I don't think we have control.
I don't think we really are.
Yeah, okay, I just,
Yeah.
it's because the house next to, again, started off with 1 apartment, 2 apartments, 3 apartments. And I just have concerns that facility would do the same, would go the same route. Not that, again, I there's anybody doing what they're doing, it's just see a kind of a shift in the neighborhood. Yes.
I mean, the only thing you do is petition, get signatures, and put it in front of the town meeting to change any zoning.
Yeah, like I say, they're not, it's a great neighborhood, and I don't anticipate, changing, over there, but it certainly has more to the years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else in the room here? I'll go online. If anyone has any questions, if you can use that raise your hand button, we'll acknowledge you. Okay, seeing none online. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
All right, so motion by Gene.
Second.
Second by Gene. All right, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, go to a roll call vote. Frank Sullivan.
Yes.
Gene Rich.
Yes.
Eric Jacobowitz.
Yes.
Jen Subbard. Yes. Alex, yes. Any discussion among the board?
I'll make a motion that we approve the special permit under section 220-9G to allow an accessory apartment on 43 Sylvan Road. The addition to be 1 story, overall size 16 feet 6 inches by 30 feet.
Second.
So the public hearing has closed. This,
It's more of a, it's a point correction.
yes. All right, go ahead.
The addition, the expansion of the footprint, 16 by 30.
Right.
But it encompasses all 3 cars, all 3 garage spaces, so it comes from existing 2-car garages.
Mhm.
Yeah, but the new build space is
The new
16
build
or
is
6.
16 6
by
by 30. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Waiting for a second.
No,
Eric,
Eric,
second.
second. Any discussion, hearing none, there's a roll call vote. Frank Sullivan, Jean Rich.
Yes.
Eric Jacob Alex.
Yes.
Dennis Hubbard.
Yes.
Rob Alex, yes. The same thing, within 14 days, the planning director's office will draw up the special permit. Then we'll sit with the town for 20 days, 28 appeal period. And then we'll notify you, and come pick it up and file it for the review. At that point, you can fully go with the permit.
If the sign, the permits signed, it's not prior to 14 days.
Yeah, we have 14 days to generate that, and then at that point, we start that
Once
20
it gets to the town clerk,
20 days.
20
it's
days.
20
Yeah,
days.
yeah.
unless it's
So
10
we
days.
usually get the permits, I'd say within a week.
You'll have
We usually
20.
have them ready and signed to go and start the clock ticking.
And is that something that I hand over to the town clerk?
No, we do the signing and giving to the town clerk, and it's up to you to, when the 20 days are over, to take it and record it in the registry of deeds.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good
Thank
luck.
Have a good night.
Yep.
Thanks.
So-
Okay. Next item on the agenda is 13 Neck Road. Based on our last meeting, we're going to review the comments from the traffic study from the mass. Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we're here at one point, right? Okay.
Vanass is our traffic study,
Yes. Correct.
and Hancock is their.
Yeah.
Can you folks find what happened to the audio? Nobody on Zoom has audio.
Can you hear us now?
Yep,
Perfect. All right.
great. Thank you.
All right, and if you can just go to sheet 3 of the set, that should take care of you need to sheet over again. Okay, so since the last time Hancock was president of the meeting, we've gotten 2 civil peer review letters as well as some traffic peer review letters. And this plan revision here reflects changes from both of those review letters. What you see here is a one-way traffic circulation with an angle parking layout. So traffic's going to enter from Neck Road, exit out onto Center Bridge Road. Doing the angle parking layout, our parking count went from 21 reduced to 18. However, we did add, per the request of the traffic peer reviewer, a flex loading space. And in addition, provided auto turn analysis on that to show that a moving truck can be placed in that area to be coordinated with management on moving days to ensure that too much disturbance to typical resident life isn't impacted. In addition, site changes. I know in previous meetings, I think we mentioned rolling totes as a method of trash removal. We're now going with a dumpster area. Seen in the top right of the site plan, the lot corner, what you see there is a screened dumpster corral, size to handle 2 6-yard dumpsters, trash and recycle. Also provided by MDM was an auto turn analysis showing movements work within the site. We're able to handle an apparatus like that. Also, additionally, the site exit on Center Bridge Road, we're proposing stop sign, do not enter signs to kind of facilitate the one-way traffic there, as well as a stop bar adjacent to the crosswalk shown. Also in that area, per comment was, per the traffic peer review comment, was to install a handicap ramp on that edge of the crosswalk. More interior to our site. Another change per the police chief was no parking signs along both Neck and Center Bridge roads to prevent any sort of rollover parking from the site along the roadways that's shown here on the site plan. There's 2 signs on Neck Road, 2 signs on Center Bridge Road. And then additionally from prior hearings, a lighting plan was requested. We provided that. We provided a light plan with the ISO points on it, as well as a rendering drawing, kind of show how light is cast from the site. That plan shows that.
You're gonna get your beer.
You got it right here.
Can you please mute yourself? You're online. Yes. So the light plan shows that we are compliant with the town of Lancaster lighting guidelines. It's dark specs compliant. It's compliant with the color rendering index as well. And it does not cast any glare on the abutting properties.
How high are
And
your highest light fixtures from the ground level? Don't remember seeing that.
yeah, I believe there was a note on the site, on the lighting plan that notes that building mounts were assumed. So you pull the lighting plan under lighting notes. Note 1, calculation shown here based on a 14-foot mount and
Okay.
I tried to argue that.
and lastly was the topic of snow storage. So we kind of try to quantify it in 2 ways. Having done developments in towns like Lancaster and Hudson, their zoning bylaw dictates a 5% snow storage area for all paved surfaces. This-
President Trump once again repeated a blatant lie about his hush money trial.
If you are on the Zoom call, can you please mute yourself?
Thank you. If everyone can check, if we're getting a lot of background noise.
The snow storage area as shown on this plan, is about 10.4% of the paved area. So in a town like Lancaster, where it's not quantified, it would be compliant in another town. Understood that, that might not mean anything to this meeting or to the bylaw. Run through the calculations and can certify that, 12 inches of compact snow. That means 12 inches fall being plowed and, in the process of being plowed along the sideline, can be stored in that area. Anything over there we can't really guarantee, but as noted in our peer review letter, we would open that as a condition. If snow storage is going to impede on the normal traffic operations, encroaching on edge of paved, we would invite that as conditions for it to be hauled off-site. We do note that on our sheet 3 of this site plan here.
What's the depth of the snow storage area?
So it's 6 feet on, I think on both sides now. Let me just check. I know the easterly sideline, the property line now formally Schmidt and our property is 6 feet. And it's also 6 feet on the other side.
So if you reduce that from 8 to 6?
So from going to Ingles parking, and maintaining a 20-foot width, it did extend out 2 extra feet. That's just the nature of when you switch from Ingles. Normally you would be able to get a reduction in driveway width. However, the town of Lancaster zoning doesn't speak to driveway widths. It's really a, they kind of leave it up as a matter of the board to allow less than, a 20-foot or something modified. But in order to just be compliant with fire code. I think that's it. In terms of site plan changes, I'll turn it back over to Chris.
So I'm not sure. Peer reviews, letter dated, I believe, yesterday. And it seems like peer review is satisfied with these provisions, does not have any further comments. We also are in receipt of the Ness's peer review report dated April 16th, and it appears that they're satisfied with all their concerns.
Who's that?
The traffic peer review.
Oh. Have you communicated with the fire department?
We did send these revised plans to the fire department, which I believe, Brian was following up on them. They haven't got comments back yet, but.
Right.
Thank you. Great.
No. And I believe your parking areas, you reduce the size of the parking slots for vehicles.
So we're still reflecting, these are 8 foot by 9 foot, I believe, stalls, which we've been.
How big?
18 feet by 9 feet, sorry. Parking stalls here.
Which is smaller than what we require.
Yeah, so I think we're going from 10 foot wide.
I think we're 10 by 20, no, yeah, 10 by 20, yeah. And if you were to make them to comply the 10 by 20, how many parking spaces would you have there versus what you have now? I know you reduced to 18. How much more would it reduce if you were to comply with the 10 by 20?
We'd probably lose one space on each, those rows there.
Two, so you'd be down to 16, and would 16 still comply with the number of units?
16. Let me just do that real quick.
Was it 1.4 per unit? 1.5.
Yeah, so our this site plan is 1.6, but yeah.
So you'd end up with, would you have enough at 16?
So per the traffic peer review, I think that they stated that the ratio that they see for this type of development in a rural type community is more in line with 1.25. They did note that the 85th percentile ratio is more like 1.53. So it would be less than that. The ratio would be not meeting at 1.53, but I still think that 18 by 9 foot is plenty adequate for a parking space. Giving enough room in terms of depth as well as width to accommodate all types of vehicles.
There was talk about, relocating the sidewalk on Tenebridge Road. Have you addressed that in this plan or no?
I think our response is we would confer with DPW on that if they would like to see the sidewalk moved from their property. I think that ultimately the decision is theirs if they want us to do that.
The sidewalk is on the town property, it's not part of our development.
I
Is that-
believe
so
it's on your
yeah,
property, and
It's on,
we're requesting that you put it on the town.
Okay. I don't think that is a problem.
no, it's just that we would need kind of DPW's thumbs up to do that work.
I'm sorry.
Scott McDonald is doing the plans.
Okay, good, okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I might just recommend that, Scott, be asked specifically if there's any objection to that. I mean, certainly the board has the authority, if it so chooses, to condition its approval on relocation of the sidewalk, subject to DPW approval. And if DPW approval isn't received, it doesn't get moved. But it's always better while the public hearing is open to find out from DPW if they're amenable to that. So I know that the review's underway, but unless a specific question is asked, you might get a review that says, looks good. So just want to get that information for the next meeting.
It's just new.
He's brand new,
He's
we just
new,
got a
yeah.
brand new
He
superintendent,
just got
so,
promoted to that job.
Yeah.
So he's still learning.
yeah, he might have been there in months maybe.
Yeah, the sidewalk thing, we have to, talk about that. That's something that we should talk to DPW about that. We don't want to necessarily commit to any sort of condition that requires us to put in a full-blown new sidewalk, but definitely something that we're willing to talk to the town about.
I mean, I'm looking at the sidewalk, and it looks like the building is, porch is on top of the sidewalk, if I'm looking at it right. Close. But here, there's no space at all, there's nothing, so.
Certainly, certain portions of the sidewalk probably make sense, so we certainly could review that, and I'll probably offer a condition that might be acceptable to the town at DPW.
Okay. What's the height of your fence?
It's noted as it has to be less than 6 feet.
Yeah.
To comply with the fence regulations. If it's higher, it has to be set back.
Right. Yeah.
It's specifically noted on the plans to be less than 6 feet.
Fire chief. That's. I think we need to find out from the DPW as well on curb cuts. So I think you're looking for us to approve the curb cuts, but curb cuts are normally done by DPW.
Right.
So you can check with.
I recall, yeah, was this within the curb cut, within the line?
Yeah, it was on our waiver list. I believe it's, curb cut permits are granted by the board.
Yeah.
DPW, right, so.
Red signs. Lighting, good. And have we talked with the Conservation Commission?
I have something.
Oh, you do, okay, okay. So I think that I just went through Alien Wards. So.
Yes. So, did you know that the storm drain runoff issue, I think was, and I mentioned it to Chris this afternoon. And I'm not sure if Beth Gordon from Haley Ward is on the call. If we may want to bring that up, address it. It's the stormwater draining from the site with the porous cement is draining to a proposed drain manhole, which is then draining to a catch basin, which is not ordinarily the way it would be done.
Okay.
I think there is a drain manhole. There is a drain manhole located on the opposite side of the street that perhaps could be discussed to rerouting the conveyance, so therefore proposing a new drain manhole. I'll should let Bethany Orton speak to this, but seeing if we can address, ordinarily wouldn't want to drain to a catch basin, okay, because it churns up the stuff, the sediment that settles in the top and churns up, and so it's getting mixing in with the pre-treated water, and then getting into the drain system. But I should let Bethany, if she's still on the call there, to speak to that. And they still are encouraging this to be brought up and addressed.
Yeah, sure. I can comment on that. This is Bethany Ordung. I'm here. Yeah, we had talked about the way that they have the current drainage tied into the town's drainage system. And it really, typical practice is to connect to the drain manhole and not go through a catch basin, so you don't resuspend the solids that have already settled out in the catch basin. I also actually happened to meet with the EPW director today, and he had mentioned something about maybe looking at tying into it the drain manhole that's on Main Street, which is just a little bit further out than the closest manhole on Center Bridge Road. So I think that is something that he would like to know if the applicant is open to that.
I would have to look at the elevations and invert data for this Main Street manhole. It would obviously kind of latch on that. If elevations work, then we could make that connection. But I will say, I think the pipes that coming from the pore system out into the existing connection and catch basin, I think they're already. And I mean, I think realistically, you don't really want to see pipe slopes go less than 0.5%. You just don't get good flow going through the pipes. I know it was brought up previously in meetings to connect into the drain manhole at the intersection. We can certainly show that if he's the board as well as DPW, just to not interrupt treatment for the catch basin.
Another option is to potentially install a new drain manhole to tie into that system.
Okay. It'll be the conference, or look at the vertical.
Yeah, let's see. Comment from the comments column. Right, so that's one of the items that was on
Yeah.
the list, things, yeah, I want to read that.
Sure, okay. So this is from our conservation agent Brad Strong. This afternoon, April 25th. Concerning the 13 Neck Road regular request. Right, this past Tuesday on April 23rd, the Conservation Commission had their Conservation Commission meeting, discussed the proposed project at 13 Neck Road. With regards to the waiver request, the Conservation Commission was not in favor of a waiver being granted. One reason being the request does not ask for any specific waiver to the rules and regulations section that was cited, and the other being that the work appears to be outside of the Commission's jurisdiction. And in that aspect, the request may be superfluous. Additionally, the Commission noted that they would like to see a better solution to the stormwater design. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you, Brad Stone, Assistant Planning Director, Conservation Agent, Town of Lancaster.
What is the comment?
I mean, I don't, that seems a little bit counter, sort of. I'm not quite sure how to respond to that.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's the first I'm hearing it.
Yeah, me too.
I just got this late this
Yeah.
afternoon.
Right, but I mean, it sounds like they're saying two things. They're saying, on the one hand, it appears that maybe the area of the site as a whole is outside of the jurisdiction,
Yeah.
but it's also difficult for them to decipher what the waiver is being requested for, because it refers to a section, but not with enough specificity to determine which section or subsection or what the extent of the waiver being requested is. So I guess I would sort of look for the applicant, not to put the applicant on the spot tonight, but if not tonight, then by your next meeting, to respond to say, you know, is it within the Concom jurisdiction, which is 100 foot from what resource area? That's the jurisdictional boundary. And then if there's some argument that it is, which the applicant must think that maybe it is if they've sought a waiver, why is it that they're seeking a waiver?
Right, we did not need to seek a waiver. It's just, you know, we sometimes put it in there just to be clear about what we're doing, but I don't think we need any waivers from the Conservation Commission, but we're happy to re-review that to make sure that that's the case.
Is there a brook or anything within 200 feet of any brook or?
No, so that, I think that was discussed also, the civil peer review from Haley Ward was, they kind of identified that we're not within any wetland resource areas that will be jurisdictional to the Conservation Commission. So yeah, we'll look into that. I want to say it might have been tripped up with some stormwater, but I'll double check.
Then I know one of the things you were looking for, waivers and associated fees for the affordable housing units. I'll just say I'm not in favor of that, so I don't think we've granted them on any of them.
Yeah, the LSDC, Lancaster Sewer District Commission, so they were not in favor.
Like sewer's not, okay. But I think the town wouldn't, I don't think that would be prudent for us to waive those. Yeah. Um, we also got a letter from Timon Davis and Duffy.
Yes. The last two read this, right? Yeah. I don't know, Attorney Goff, if you've had a chance to look at this. Yeah, we just got it today.
No, I didn't see it.
Okay.
You're coming.
Well, I didn't get it organizing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So,
So I think,
yes, he's got good thoughts.
so I think from the email, they asked for it to be read into the record. I
Yes,
believe,
they did
so.
ask for it to be read.
Alright. I know we did get some questions, we'll open it up obviously to the public for comments, et cetera. We did get a second one, there was a number of questions from Deb to come up.
Okay.
It's this afternoon.
Okay.
Yes, I believe I did. If not, I have a copy of it, I can just give it up. We'll get that.
Chris, did you get a copy of it?
Yeah, thank you.
So regarding excessive density of the proposed 13 Neck Road development, the proposed development. Dear Chair Alex and members of the board, I write on behalf of Jan Rizzolo Mellows and John Mellows, the owners of 12 Neck Road in Lancaster. 12 Neck Road is in a butter to being directly across the street from the lot at 13 Neck Road, on which Neck Farm Estates LLC, the applicant, for comprehensive permit under chapter 40B in this matter, the applicant intends to construct the proposed development. In its current configuration, the proposed development consists of 11 rental units, and the lot at 13 Neck Road is half an acre located at the junction of Neck Road and Center Bridge Road locals. Various concerns have been raised by board members and residents concerning the scale of the proposed development in comparison to the mere half acre on which it is constructed. Purpose of this letter, the purpose of this letter is to determine that, consistent with those concerns, the proposed development includes an extraordinarily high number of housing units per acre when compared to 40B projects approved by the Housing Appeals Committee, the AHC, in similar locations. Indeed, the proposed development includes nearly twice as many units per acre as any HAC approved development since 2000 in towns with population densities of less than 700 residents per square mile. Lancaster's population density is 307 residents per square mile. And so comparison groups of towns include smaller towns similar to Lancaster, as well as those that are more than twice as dense in population. These data underscore that what is plainly apparent from the applicant's plans of proposed development is simply too large to reasonably fit on the locus. For this reason, my clients urge the board to withhold approval of the proposed development unless the applicant significantly reduces the number of units. In compiling the data, we reviewed all HAC decisions since 2000, approving 40B projects in towns with fewer than 700 residents per square mile of land. This data set includes 26 such developments to comparison developments. A chart summarizing comparison developments is attached here to an Exhibit A. Reviewing only HAC decisions is an appropriate lens through which to make broad-based comparative evaluation of this question. Not only are no centralized statewide records kept listing densities for approved 40B projects, but did not advance to HAC proceeding. Whereas the HAC publishes all its rulings, which we have reviewed going back 24 years to 2000, but is also the most controversial, ambitious, and contested projects that tend to advance the HAC. Moreover, each of the 26 comparison developments was thoroughly reviewed and vetted by HAC and evidentiary hearing. Where contested issues such as density are examined, the HAC is also generally considered to be developer-friendly agency, and so densities approved by the HAC are consistently higher than densities approved by a ZBA. The density of the comparison development ranges from less than 1 unit per acre up to 12.4 units per acre. In contrast, the density of the proposed development is 22 units per acre, which is nearly twice as dense as the densest comparison development. This excessive density underlies the main concerns expressed about the proposed development thus far in the permitting process, such as space for snow removal, trash removal, sufficiency of resident and visitor parking, water use, architectural integrity, environmental impact, incongruity in a historic district, and vehicular, pedestrian, and child safety. Units per acre density of the comparison developments provides an appropriate benchmark against which to measure the density of the proposed development. Again, the comparison appropriately is to developments in low population density towns similar to Lancaster, as well as less rural towns that are more than twice as dense. The potential problems caused by high density developments, such as increased resources and infrastructure demands, effect on open spaces, and incongruence with architectural styles, are more pronounced in less populated towns such as Lancaster. The fact that none of the comparison developments have density anywhere close to that of the proposed development speaks loudly regarding what should be appropriate in a town such as Lancaster, particularly in a location situated among historic single-family homes. The proposed development is truly an outlier in seeking to cram 11 units on a half acre. For these reasons, Director Butters, Jan Pizzolo, Mellows, and John Mellows respectfully request that the board withhold approval of the proposed development unless the applicant significantly reduces the number of units. We appreciate your consideration of these concerns. My colleague Patrick Earby will be available to discuss the concerns addressed in this letter at the board's meeting tomorrow night. Sincerely, Benjamin Timon. And then be closed and consider.
Mr. Chairman, it's just our response that, we don't feel that density is a valid local concern. This project was reviewed by Mass Housing. They issued a project eligibility letter. This project has gotten support from the Affordable Trust in Lancaster. We think this is an appropriate project. We, as I said from the outstart, when we started this hearing process, is we had a project that was larger than this. And the applicant was advised by his accountants to add more units. At that point in time, we decided to come into a project that we think is economically valuable at the right unit number. We cannot increase repair.
Adam, isn't pro forma, like, don't they have to show us in a pro forma or something that the 11 is the bottom number that they need to make this a viable project?
It used to be that simple.
Okay.
But the Housing Appeals Committee, through multiple decisions, has made it somewhat more complicated than that. But let me try and see if I can parse through this as simply as possible for your benefit and for the benefit of the public. So I just reviewed the letter. Obviously, I haven't had a chance to analyze it much, but I will say that I can concur with some of the statements made, but I've got a critique for some of the other statements. So I appreciate the analysis. I can't stand here on the spot and tell you that I've done sort of an analysis before of HAC cases, but I can tell you, looking at the list, that I know some of these cases personally. I've been involved in some of these cases personally. And the list is limited by the fact that it's only HAC cases. So think about all the 40Bs proposed in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts since 2000. This is only a sampling of cases that made it to the Housing Appeals Committee, meaning that they were denied appeal, or they were approved and they were challenged by an applicant to get the applicant dissatisfied with conditions. Even a butter appeals wouldn't be on here, because those don't go to the HAC, they go to the courts. So it's a limited sampling to begin with. It's court cases, it's HAC cases, not court cases, not 40B comprehensive permits that are issued and not challenged. Several of these projects I know, because of my personal involvement, have never even been instructed. So they're 40Bs that got litigated and then never got built. Some of them are too new, so maybe they will be built eventually, but they're still tied up in litigation or in the process. So it is a fairly limited sampling of cases. With that said, it is a sampling of cases and it gives you a sense as to what the HAC has opined on. Doesn't necessarily mean they opined as to the density. In some of these cases, you know, I litigated the Lunenburg case that's listed here 6 months ago. Density was not the issue. Water and sewer access was the issue. So these are not cases necessarily that relate to density. What I will say is, and again, concurring with what the applicant's counsel just said, density in and of itself is not he used the term valid local concern. I'll say it a little differently. It's not a local concern that in and of itself outweighs the presumptive need for affordable housing. So I would not advise you to hang your hat on the fact that it's just too dense. End of story, period. Density, the HAC has not been receptive to that argument. They've not accepted too dense as a reason for denial. Having said that, I will say that some of the other remarks in the letter could have legs, so to speak, if the board reviews the evidence and feels that they're supported, whether that's the evidence supplied by the applicant, the evidence supplied by abutters, the evidence supplied by your peer review consultant. So it's not the density itself, it's the consequence of the density and whether those consequences are local needs that are being trounced upon by virtue of allowing this development. So to look at Mr. Attorney Timon's letter, he talks about the excessive density underlies many concerns. He refers to space for snow and trash removal, sufficiency of parking, water use, architectural integrity, environmental impact, incongruity in a historic district, vehicular, pedestrian, and child safety. I'm not saying that those are legitimate concerns. He's raising them. His position on behalf of his clients is that they're legitimate concerns. But if they are legitimate concerns and you have support for them in the record, then certainly if you can point to density resulting in vehicular, pedestrian, and child safety issues, that is something that will get the ear of the Housing Appeals Committee. I'm not saying that's in the record, I'm just telling you that it's not the density itself, it's what the density could potentially, arguably, conceivably cause. Same thing he refers to increased resource and infrastructure demands, effect on open spaces, incongruence with architectural styles. Again, open space in and of itself is a justification for denial of a 40B development if it's critically needed, as the term of the case law, critically needed open space. So is this defeating access to critically needed open space in the town of Lancaster? That's a question for you, not for me. But if it does, then that might be a basis for supporting a conditioning of the project, a reduction in density, something like that. So to get back to your specific question about, you know, when can we look at a pro forma, when can we say reduce the density? It used to be 10, 12 years ago, that as part of this process, you could say submit a pro forma. Now we have a pro forma because what you do have is you have a copy of the mass housing application. But you used to be able to say, submit a pro forma, and more than that, you used to be able to engage your own financial peer review consultant, review it and say, no, you can do better because you're making too much money. In 2010, with the Amesbury decision decided by the Housing Appeals Committee, the Housing Appeals Committee said that's not within the purview of the Zoning Board of Appeals. That's something that's left with the subsidizing agency. Once Mass Housing says we're issuing a project eligibility letter, it meets the jurisdictional requirements, that's end of story with respect to the financeability of the project and the finances of the project. But there's an exception to that rule. And the exception is, if you propose through this process, and it doesn't happen early on in this process, but it happens as you tend to wrap the process up, and we've done it with other projects. If you propose conditions, and the conditions could be a reduction of density, if that reduction would be supported by some of these things, not simply because you'd like to see a less dense project. If a reduction of density you think is supported by a local need, and you say to the applicant, we need you to reduce the density because you're creating a hazard to pedestrian or child safety, because you're removing critically needed open space, and the applicant responds and says, we can't do it, it's not financially feasible, well, then you can say, prove it. And that's when you can require them to show you a pro forma as designed, and then a pro forma reducing this from 11 units to 10 units, to 9 units, to 8 units, and showing you that the reduction of even 1 unit would render the project uneconomic. So it can occur, but only at that stage in the process, and only if you feel you're empowered to do that because you have evidence in the record that supports some of these concerns. But that's up to the board to decide.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, if I will, you know, it's obviously our position at this point in time. There's a couple of things we need to work out, certainly, but it's our position at this point in time with the peer review back that there are no outstanding issues that could be, you know, defined as a local concern issue. I think we've addressed all those issues. We've had great peer review. We've had great engineer traffic review this project, and we think we're in a position where we're getting close to, there are no more remaining issues.
So, please refrain from any comments to a public period. Thank you. My concerns with the density always. I understand that the peer review piece of this, but I went through on Saturday morning without that house being there, and it was 15 cars parked. And I understand that we can put the condition to spaces. My concern is that somebody else on Neck Road or Senator Road has people over that overflows capacity, and somebody's doing the same thing, and then we have congestion and basic denial of parking on the street. Of parking on the street. And then in turn, does that we have parking on the street? It's gonna have a ripple effect, right? We have parking on the street, it's gonna affect people's access to the town green here, right, during Memorial Day, et cetera. I'm trying to think through it again. I'm just trying to.
Nothing we can say about parking on the street.
Yeah.
We could condition potentially installing more parking signs on the street. It's not to say that the result of, again, people having larger gatherings at their house and still park there, it's going to create additional safety concerns for that area.
I mean, these 11
It's
units,
yeah, right.
these 11 units are gonna be more than a one-bedroom apartment, so there's gonna be kids.
Yeah.
Where,
Where do they recreate?
yeah,
Where do they, yeah.
where do they go? Where,
Into the triangle.
Into the triangle.
That's where they're gonna go. Or the park across the street before the middle of the cemetery.
does this fit in the historical district in Lancaster? Does it?
But then I guess to add, right, it's around safety, right? Primarily the concerns, other reasons for conditioning or for rain. Or for denying, right? Like we can't necessarily use it storage.
So, so through you, Mr. Chair. So, so historic preservation, architectural preservation, those can be in certain circumstances local concerns. Is this such a circumstance? I would find it very hard to believe that in some communities and in some sections of some communities that an applicant proposing a square rectangular box in the midst of what is clearly historic area that has significant historic value, that the HAC would necessarily allow that to occur. Is this that sort of an area? Are we concerned about the design of these buildings and fitting in with the historical character, or is it having something this dense in the midst of an area surrounding area that's not quite as dense? So I'm not telling you that historic preservation, historic character, consistency with the character of the historic neighborhood, can't be considerations. If that was the sole concern and you had no others, but I want to hang my hat on that and risk a case at the HAC, that's sort of up to you. It's not as strong of a case as if you have some of these more. There's a hierarchy. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
When you get before the Housing Appeals Committee, if you're showing them child safety on one hand and you're showing them historic character on the other hand, the safety is going to win, 10 times out of 10.
Right.
So those are the things that tend to get the attention. Endangering the public health, risks to the public safety, critically needed open spaces, significant engineering flaws that create risks of flooding or environmental damage, things of that sort. Can you tie? There's no question. This is I'm not disagreeing with the statements made by the Abutters Council. This is a dense project for this site, but the question is, can it function? And can it function in a way that doesn't create any or multiple of the concerns that we've raised? the peer reviews speak for themselves. Again, I don't disagree with the applicant's counsel that the peer reviews, if the peers were appointed the peer review consultants, and I won't speak for them, have essentially said, going through their checklist, that their concerns have been satisfied. That's somewhat of a different question because you haven't asked them is, okay, does that mean that this site is going to function the way we expect it to function perfectly and we're going to have enough parking? Your traffic peer review consultant isn't telling you there's going to be plenty of parking, you're not going to have overflow of the road. The consultant is saying, we looked at the Institute of Transportation Engineers manual, it says 1.5 spaces, we did the quantitative calculation, it meets the standard. Meeting the standard in functioning may not always be the same thing. But I'm not a traffic engineer, you get to look at your traffic engineer, ask those questions, if those are concerns that the board has. And then the question becomes, can you condition it in a way that would still allow you to approve it? Because if you can, then there's not a basis for denying. If it can be conditioned to mitigate the concern. Is no parking signage on the main roadway sufficient? Is requiring a condition where the management company is going to police that additional space that's being offered for purposes of moving trucks and whatnot? Is that going to allow that to function? You have to evaluate that in your own mind to decide whether that's going to be.
The snow storage, I mean, that's a concern. You can't, with a 6-foot area, you can't go in there. You're gonna need a loader, you're gonna need, I don't think you can plow into that area.
Well,
We're not gonna
when you
fence.
get the whole site plowed, you have to haul it out.
Exactly.
Right, and ultimately, where the truck comes in, parks, where are they gonna park?
Yeah.
If you go out and they park, it's gonna overflow on the street,
Yeah.
right?
2 6-yard dumpsters for 11 units. I have a 6-yard dumpster in my house.
I guess they'll have to be empty and then
Every week, every day.
True, yeah.
I mean, I know I have a burn, but still, I mean, that's. And the 7-unit part, I just think safety wise, coming up Center Bridge, cars on Neck Road, I just think it doesn't fit there, just. You have kids out there, they're gonna be riding their bicycles and hitting the building on the sidewalk. Sidewalk's not moved, they're gonna be. I know it was approved by the housing and everything, but I just think it could be a better project.
There's a picture on paper. 7 units is a lot on that one side.
On that, yeah.
We have partners, we go back to bid ask and ask, at the point in terms of, yes, does this comply with the function and these things? The parking is no removal of the big parts of concern, again, lack of open space there, and then where are kids gonna go play? Are they
Yeah,
gonna play in that-
pedestrian and child safety is just,
Are they gonna go and play in that triangle with
That's where they're
3 different directions of traffic?
Either triangle.
Either
yeah,
triangle.
yeah,
One's the high speed triangle, one's the high speed and low speed.
Yeah,
yeah,
and there's 2 roads in between that.
yeah.
They're asking if the floor is open to public comment.
Yeah,
Not quite yet, let us keep going, we'll open it up to public, I'll give the public time to talk. Sure. And we have 1 letter from local residents, with all our questions.
I just think we could do better, I don't, and I know you say,
We did, I think I'm not, I represent development of 40B projects. But that's why these projects are more dense, that's economics of it. In a town like this, you don't see many houses like this. And we're trying to get people into the town that can be able to afford these units. That's what it's gonna be about. That's really what we're here for. We have to remember that. So yes, it is more dense than typical homes in Lancaster. That's for a reason. Wow.
I mean, it's far more dense than any of the other 40 projects.
I don't think we've ever had one this dense.
Not this dense.
I know we're talking about being with the DPW for the sidewalk. And how wide is the front porch? In back, it's the plans, like the gap off the house. Is there a chance to cut that back and give a little bit more space? That's not livable space.
Well, the sidewalk is on their property, so if they move the sidewalk to
I
their
know.
own property.
That's also the other thing causing zigzag.
Yeah, but if they move the entire sidewalk.
Right. And we're waiting to hear back from the DPW.
Yeah.
I was looking at it, like, also, that front porch. And I'm trying not to scale it from the front. Is that 4 or 5 feet deep? Is that 6 feet deep?
That's the building, that's the old one.
Yeah,
That's the house.
I don't have the exact dimensions, but I would say probably 5-6 feet off the base of the building. So they're about the same.
Yeah, I'm talking about the front porch and the building that kind of gets right next to the sidewalk there.
Yeah, so
The far, south elevation farmhouse?
I don't, I have a reduced set in front of me, so it's not scalable, but I would say it's 6 feet.
Yeah. Should we set it up in here? So it's coming in here, this.
11.2.
From
Yeah,
the other side of the sidewalk to the front of the house.
Right.
I just don't see how that's just. So, sidewalk is-
Porch is open, so you can really see the corner. I think we talked about it last time. Can you remind me, electric vehicle charging? No plans on the site for that? That's right.
I wasn't present last hearing, but I wasn't part of this plan here for the electric vehicle charging station.
I thought it was supposed to be two.
Yeah, did we talk about adding to? I didn't see that on the update.
Yeah, we added something in our latest traffic report. We don't have our traffic here.
Does Lancaster adopted the stretch code?
Yes.
So my recollection of the code is they've got for private side, they need at least one.
Yeah.
And maybe two. So as a code requirement, they can certainly go above and beyond that as a condition of approval, but fairly certainly required to have.
I just finished the house I built in town and I had to put the electric, for an electric car, even though I don't have one because it was part of the code. They had to have it all piped and all that stuff.
So we haven't identified on the prints yet where what sites they could be.
Where the actual locations are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you were to do 11 units, you have to have 11 hookup?
No, it's not as stringent.
It's not, okay.
But there is a requirement that there be availability. I don't recall from the stretch code what the requirement is. I think it's a ratio. So I don't look at it, but I'm fairly certain it's a requirement that
Yeah.
there be some.
Oh, I know there is,
Yeah.
'cause I had to do it.
And it may not be on the plan, but a condition of decision that there be two places and then it to be determined later on. Because, we can go back and forth all day about where they should be located.
And you're no progress with the sewer commission at this point because they're still under their study for the next couple of years.
Correct.
You have no alternative to do septic because there's nowhere to put a septic.
Soil conditions would warrant at, groundwater, areas that have been 3.5 feet deep, so
Well,
it would require, significant more fill. And, when a septic system of that size to support the units, won't be feasible on the site.
I'm gonna open up to the public
all
for comments.
right.
Save time, I'll just read Ronald's comment or questions. I think a lot of them have been addressed. As usual, I'll just do groundwork, 3 minutes, time it, start with the people in the room and then move to people online. If you can say your name and address.
Brilliant. Good evening, Patrick Kirby with the firm Time Davis and Duffy, which submitted the letter that we're just discussing. I think that Attorney Costa, Patrick Yerby, Y-E-R-B-Y. I think Attorney Costas was correct. There's no bright line test for density, but it's rather the consequences of the density that matter. And that's what we're talking about here. You know, we're losing more parking spaces here. Where do the kids play? It seems snow removal will be an issue. Trash removal could be an issue. The historic character of the neighborhood, I think it does matter. That's just one problem among many that arise from the density here. And again, this isn't just a dense project, but based on the research we did, this is an extreme outlier in density. We just weren't able to look at every 40B project. There's no centralized database for that. But we do think that HAC approved projects provided a good measurement standard. Of course, density isn't always at issue. And as Attorney Costas said, not even all those were built, but these are 26 projects that fit in our range. Every single HAC approved project since the year 2000 in a town with similar population density to Lancaster, and even towns to twice as dense as Lancaster. All 26 of them. This proposal is nearly twice as dense as the most dense of those projects. So I think that this data does show and is consistent with all these concerns that arise from the excessive density here. So if any of you have any questions about the research we conducted, I'm happy to talk about that. I also, I want to acknowledge, I understand the developers' economic concerns here. I mean, that's why they're trying to cram so much onto this half acre. It's an economic balance. I just don't think it can be done here reasonably. And I think, comparing to other 40B projects underscores that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's the law firm?
The law firm is Timon, Davis, and Duffy.
Thank you.
Sam Elias on that 24 Neck Road. MELATOS. So I guess the one thing I do like to see is that at least the traffic pattern has changed. I no longer have parking lot exit with headlights kind of facing directly at my house, but, even that doesn't come without a cost. I mean, obviously the parking issue kind of gets further, made an issue. You know, I think one thing I'd like to correct is something Russ had kind of referred to, is that the traffic study implied that, similar parking situations in a rural area resulted in, I think it was either 1.3 or 1.4 parking spaces per unit, but those actual reference parking, situations weren't in rural areas. I think even the chairman had kind of commented on that at the last meeting. It was Framingham and maybe the closest was Concord. And on top of that, they were all 100 to 200 unit developments. And to me, without, you know, doing any of that type of analysis for a living, I would assume there's some, you know, efficiencies of scale in terms of parking when you're dealing with that size of a development. So without even knowing the answer, whether or not it implies anything different, I would think a more close representation of this type of development, and it's, you know, with the true parking you can be, should be seen. You know, not a 200 development unit in Framingham. It's not, you know, a reference point for this at all. On top of that, I think what is important is understanding, you know, how many people could actually be living here, right? I thought I read somewhere, maybe they didn't comment on that tonight. I thought it was like over 30, you know, could live there based on the number of units and bedrooms. Maybe it was higher. They might shake their head at that, you know, that could never happen. But as far as I know, there's no deed restriction being put into this place. It's got a number of people that could live there. So, you know, at the end of the day, you have to factor that in. Realistically, you know, the standard says 1.4, whatever spots per unit, but if you could have 40 people living there, we know we got a problem. You can put no parking signs, but you know that's not going to solve the issue of butters. You know, people trying to pass through are going to be calling the police station every day because people will be lying there. There just wouldn't be any place for people to park, right, when you visit. You know, I have a good video example that I'll probably send the board at some point, just from that I had taken last spring. As most of you probably know, during the Memorial Day celebration, Main Street shut down, people park in the triangle and along that. And I have a good video of what it looks like when that happens, and you know, two cars can't even pass each other. At that point in time, you have to kind of go off the road and wait for one to pass. So, you know, beyond that hindrance, certainly, you know, it becomes a fire safety issue. You know, fire truck can probably get into those entrances and exits, but not when there's parking on, you know, Center Bridge and Neck Road.
Sam, just to be respectful.
Wrapping up.
Yeah.
So,
I want to hear what you have to say, but just.
Yeah, no, I hear you. You know, I think as far as the sidewalk location, I don't think the town should be put in any urban position. They shouldn't really have to move any of their, you know, their space. The sidewalk shouldn't be having to move for this project. I don't think legally you're required to do anything like that. I think it's in a safer location where it's at, where it's putting it, you know, married up against the street. You know, I think, you know, just to kind of respond to a couple other comments here that were made. I think number one, yes, mass housing approved this, but that's a very low threshold intentionally. You know, that's kind of a check the box with your application. There's really no, you know, heavy lifting done by that agency as far as approval goes.
See, Mike, I'm gonna cut you off, but if you have time.
Yeah,
if you want to come back.
I just got one more thing to say too. I think it's important to hear, because Mr. Halford, he kind of interjected a couple of times and said, you know, we're trying to create housing and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, it's really only, you know, I think it's either 2 or 3 affordable housing units being delivered by this project. At the end of the day, it's really about money. And, you know, that's what they're trying to achieve here. The most money they can make out of this type of a project. If it was about housing, they would rehab the existing 2-family structure that they purchased, which is really something that mass housing actually encourages, is to rehab and renovate existing structures versus, you know, knock down and you know, build completely new. So something to keep in mind as well. Thank you.
Did you say your address was 24? 24 that road?
Yeah.
Anybody else in the room here? All right, so I'll start from the top. Looks like Taylor belongs.
Yes, thank you. I'm also at 24 Neck Road. Sam is my husband. I just think that it's probably worth noting tonight. I can appreciate what the town council had mentioned about the developer, checking all of the boxes in terms of meeting like the standards and the peer review. And I think it is a valid point. And one of my concerns is that the standard doesn't necessarily mean that that is the reality. And I think for me, I'm concerned about, even conditions that the board might make for this developer and how are those like realistically going to be maintained and managed, right? So if there is a, reserved parking, for functions or whatever, like how is that going to be managed realistically? There isn't a management office on site at this property. And then to just speak a little bit more about, I think, the density and the historic neighborhood, I think the density is a real issue for me. I have 3 small children that live in our home at 24 Neck Road. And, I think safety, them playing outside is a real concern with the number of vehicles and units and, sight lines. And to Sam's point, when there are cars parked on the street on either side, our sight lines leaving our driveway are definitely impacted. And so safety, I think for the families and the children that live, would potentially live in this project is a concern, as well as the safety of my own family. And, I think the last thing that I want to say about the historic neighborhood and this project is I feel a little bit misled because even at the site visit that was conducted with the developers and Mass Housing, the renderings of this project had a lot more, I think, there were trees, there was a lot more, I think, shrubbery and what have you to like really make this feel like it fit. And now there is nothing, and it is 3 buildings, a parking lot, and a fence. And I think that is misleading to me as they, pitch that to the community. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we submitted a landscape plan that shows trees, shrubberies, along the perimeter as well as mixed in with the, so it's sheet 5. Right? So.
Next, so Win Clark.
Hi, thanks. Win Clark, 928 Main Street. Speaking real quick to the question of renderings, a couple of meetings ago, I had asked if new 3D renderings could be provided that realistically represented the site. I know you just said that there was a landscape plan, but have new renderings been done yet? And are the old misleading renderings still posted online?
There were new, sorry, Mr. Chairman, there were new renderings submitted, I think addressing the citizens' concern. So I don't know if those been posted on the website or not, but we did submit new renderings.
Okay. All right. And just to echo what everybody's saying about parking, I mean, there's zero chance that there will not be overflow parking regularly on these streets. And to say otherwise, I think is just, you're kidding yourselves. That's a public safety issue, not just because of sight lines. It's because, sight lines, kids playing, going in and out of cars, taking the police away from the jobs that they should be doing rather than, coming here multiple times a day to deal with parking issues. It's just over the top. Come on. It's just not tenable. And anybody with any shred of common sense should know that. Thank you.
Next, we have Martha Moore.
Hi, this is Martha Moore, 131 Center Bridge Road in Lancaster. And I'm just going to whiz through a bunch of things that come to mind. The traffic review study, was that calculated given, different charts and things like that from the state, et cetera? Or did someone actually come out and measure how many cars go by? Because I live on Centerbridge Road, and I can tell you it's an exceedingly busy road and a narrow road. So there's lots of safety concerns with adding to that traffic. I think also somebody said, "Oh, well, we've handled and done what we needed to do for all the issues that were brought up." I think the police recently came through with another review, and they had multiple safety concerns, especially the sight levels and things like that at the intersections. And I was wondering if anyone or in what study do you validate the water pressure? Is there enough water pressure there with all those people living there for fire safety? There is one small hydrant which would have to be taken out because the barn building that you call the barn will be sitting on top of it, at least from your drawings. In terms of density, the sidewalk in front of the development is a continuation of a sidewalk that comes down Centerbridge Road. If you're going to move the sidewalk, which I don't know why you could do that because it's town property, public property, people would have to cross twice on a busy street with their kids in the carriage and their kids on their bicycles to get back to the actual sidewalk that will take them up to the center, which is usually the route that people go. Safety vehicles. I don't understand by looking at the drawings. If there was a fire, how close could a fire truck get to these buildings? If there was a need for an ambulance, do they have to park in the road that is on the outer edge of the development to get to a person that's in need of very fast medical help? Doesn't make sense to me. And I've seen not a lot, but I've seen several new developments that have gone up in Sterling, in Lancaster, in Ayr. In Lancaster, I would say the MCO development. Those are pretty tight in there. But they're not situated in a historic district, and they're not situated in the middle of the town where there's lots of traffic and things like that. They're on the outer edge of all these towns. And again, this is just, it's a pretty development from the drawings that you've showed us, but it really is not feasible for this particular location. And in terms of the historic, real quick, this is a national historic landmark, a national historic district. It is not just something the townspeople dubbed on this. This is a national thing, and it takes a rigorous review that takes years to get it assigned. And you're just thumbing your nose at that type of character and that type of reasonable caring for our nation's heritage. That's all.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Marilyn's iPad. So it's listed. Marilyn, we cannot hear you. If you can state your name, address.
Yeah.
Hello, yes, this is Greg Wilson. I live at number 2 Neck Road. And I have a question for the board. How will the town enforce the inspections and the maintenance of the porous pavement?
The inspection of the pavement. This is a porous pavement, right? So there's maintenance that has to happen in order for it to sediment and stuff can get clogged in there.
We'll talk about putting a maintenance plan as a
So I think
condition.
that was part of one of the issues we talked about earlier in the process. So Greg, I don't know if that answers your question, right? But looking at it potentially as part of a as a condition of the project to maintain the forest pavement.
Correct, but how will it, let's see, how will it be enforced through the years? Because I'm looking at the contours on the design drawing, and if the inspections aren't made and the maintenance isn't kept up, the stormwater is going to go onto Center Bridge Road.
You know, we can condition something. We're not any code enforcement within the town. So I definitely understand your question, right? And again, we may be able to condition it in a particular way. We'd have to talk through that. In terms of enforcement, I can't, and the board can't answer to that because again, we're not a code enforcement board, right? That's gonna go to the building inspector's office, et cetera, right?
I know.
I think it's definitely some good food for thought.
Yeah.
But in terms of enforcement, we can't necessarily talk to that.
Yeah. I know in the past, on the planning board, we conditioned projects where they had to do a maintenance plan and they had to, like clean out the detention ponds and stuff, and every 6 months, give a report to the building inspector.
Right.
And it had to be done by a company. So I think, a maintenance plan, something conditioned could be done that way. But again, it would be the building inspector.
And then any violations would be raised to whatever is appropriate based on what that violation is. Whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Rick. Next we'll go to Alex.
No, that was very good, but it's still like a gap.
Hi, thank you. Couple of questions. This is Alex Turner, this is Alex Turner, 620 Main Street, Lancaster, Mass. So my questions are, first was about, I appreciated the discussion of stormwater, but I was confused a bit because I thought best practices or DEP wants to manage stormwater on site. Can anybody do just funnel their stormwater into the town systems or direct it, or is there any regulation about that? So that it's a question for whoever wants to answer that. The other question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want me to?
So the stormwater regulations lay out the 10 standards. Standard 2 specifically talks to peak rate runoff offsite, and what you're trying to do is meet your pre-discharge rate on site is with your post-discharge rate, and that's what we're doing with this project with the forest pavement. You are allowed to have an overflow system, and that would connect to the town system. I will note that in the latest stormwater report we provided, there is no discharge coming out of the system in the 100-year storm, which is over 8 inches in a 24-hour period. As a fail-safe and a backup, I think it's amenable to have an overflow time to the municipal system. Otherwise, it's outlining from previous comment, it's just gonna come out of the pavement, come down Center Bridge Road and enter in with, an already flooded stream. So I think it'd be, in terms of good practice and design, pipe that flow in case of, problems with the forest needs to be cleaned. But
I'm gonna do this just because I think it's probably the right thing to do because we have our peer reviewer on board too. Bethany, do you concur with what the applicants
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so the requirement is that they need to show that they're not increasing the amount of peak flow that comes off of the site during a storm. They have demonstrated that in their stormwater hydrology study. And they have those 2 catch basins, I believe it's 2 catch basins installed adjacent to the porous pavement, and the intent there, as they have it modeled, is to catch the overflow if that porous pavement system fails. And it's piped into the system, as the applicant's engineer said, as a fail-safe. If, for some reason there's more water than the 100-year storm that they have modeled that comes into the system.
Thank you. Nothing. Yeah. Just because.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything further or?
Yeah, just a couple of quick questions, and you can answer them after if you like. I'm sorry, I was on and off the call. I had some technical issues, kept dropping, but the snow plowing plan at a major intersection here with all these roads, I know from personal experience how much the banking gets, how difficult the sightlines and problems are with snow storage. The other thing is, I'm not sure, I'm assuming that this is going to have to go to MIPA because of the sewer connections, and if that process has begun yet or not. So those are my other two questions. Thank you.
If I could speak to that, the MIPA threshold for sewer and wastewater type work is not applicable in this case. It's often, thousands of thousands of people being connected. There's 11 units.
11 units.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, and the snow plowing?
I mean, we have the proposed plan on there.
And Mr. Chairman, just to clarify that point, because I think it keeps being brought up, what we're saying is we've done the calculations and we've said a foot of snow can be stored in that area. If there's some hesitation from the board, maybe that number comes to, say 8 inches. And then we could have a condition that says anything about 8 inches or more, we take the snow off-site, and that could be a condition.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deb.
Yeah, thanks. This is Deb Duramo, 127 Harvard Road. I think I have a simple question, and then I have some more. Is the fire hydrant going to be removed on Neck Road from in front of the building?
No, so
it won't be removed?
No, sorry, should have went through, but no, so I know it might be misleading with the actual street line being, about 20 feet off the property line, but the hydrant is actually located maybe 3 feet off that edge of pavement. So we do have enough horizontal clearance where we're not affecting the hydrant this property we're building a truck.
Is there a plan that we can show where the street actually is? Because I do think that that's sort of misleading about how close the building is to the actual street. There is another buffer, which is town-owned land, that, is between the building and the street. I just want to make sure that the public and the board is aware of that.
Yeah, it might be better represented if you go to sheet 2. That's the existing conditions plan. You can see it's probably a darker line on their plan.
Yeah, you can see the coastal line there.
Yes, so you can see. Yeah, so I don't know if you could just zoom in to the plant left there.
And Russ, what is that, 13 feet, I think it was?
Yeah, yes.
Might be more. It might be 20 feet.
Yeah. And so from Center Bridge, you can see that property line denoted by that 175.02 measurement is our property line, but the dashed line running parallel to it is the actual edge of pavement on Center Bridge. And then if you just pan to the left, so
the darker older line denoted as 164.43 measurement is the property line. You can see the hydrants located to the left there. And it might get mulled up in the sewer and water lines you see there, but that's where the edge pavement is there as well.
So the setback is not as short as it seems, because then there's another open space owned by the town before you get the road. So it's important to understand the distance before the actual building to the actual street. That is a lot more than what it may appear on the site plans.
And I had another question. I'm not sure if it was in the traffic study or where I noted that the center line on Neck Road being 66 feet wide or something, it's not really at that point in front of the building's proposed building. And there was a suggestion to consider the center line of this Neck Road piece that goes near the building. And I'm wondering if our council or anyone has weighed in on whether we can use that as their center line in the setback for the building. I mean, otherwise the building is practically on the road from, what we can see, and it's really dangerous. Rob, I guess I'm asking you that question. Has the council weighed in on the actual Neck Road center line in the area?
No. I'm happy to address it. So, so setbacks aren't measured from center lines of roadways. Setbacks are measured from property boundaries. So in terms of building setbacks and whatnot, that's measured from what is the thick black line you see on this page that runs 164.43 feet north and south, and whatever, there's no measurement here, but then runs horizontally across the page. I see 175.02 feet. So that's your property boundary, and that's from where your setbacks are measured. Center lines of roadways are typically shown in engineering plans, so you get a sense as to where the center exists. And as you can see, water and sewer lines are shown as well. But the center line, I've done no independent research to determine whether the center line is accurate based upon survey plans that might be on record at the registry. But I don't think it's particularly relevant to the work of the zoning board of appeals.
Mr. Chair, if I could just also add, so the way that the front yard setback in Lancaster zoning states is they have two conditions for setbacks, one being to the property line, one being to the center line, which I believe what the resident is talking about here. So Neck Road in that configuration at the intersection actually kind of opens up into that triangle where it has two actual drive lanes. And I think that's what she's noting here. Even the civil peer review, Haley Ward, brought this up. And our response to it was the way that the bylaw states, it's per the center line of the right of way, not the traveled way. And that's why it's noted as 66 feet on our site plan. But I will say we're asking for relief on front and side yard setback, or just front yard setback, sorry. Anyways, because we're 10 feet to the property line, which is less than the 30 feet required. So either way, we do have to go for relief, regardless.
And just one comment on the parking, which is insufficient, but I don't think the parking lot is supposed to start unless it's 20 feet or more from the road, and I can't tell from the pictures I've seen whether that's there or not, so.
Yeah, we're asking for a waiver from that requirement.
Yeah, I don't have a list of waivers, so I can't really speak to that. And again, one thing to point out, I believe the lot comes with 2 sewer credits, so you could build a nice 2-family house on that lot right now. Thank you.
Deb, I'm not gonna read the email into the records, as I'm assuming you've asked all the questions. They would email over through the planning director. So again, I gave you public comment, so just, I know earlier it said I was gonna read your questions in, but obviously you get the opportunity to ask your questions. Lee Pothier.
Hi, Lee Pothier. I live at 66 Center Bridge Road next to the project. My question is the fence that's going to be going up between the properties. How long? I mean, how far down the driveway does that go? Does that go right to the end of the lot? My concern is visibility coming out of my driveway. I plow my driveway. I have to back up and, have to be able to look down the street to see if there's any traffic coming. And with the fence, I won't be able to see anybody, it would make it very difficult to plow my driveway. That's it.
Thank you, Lee. Okay, I think that's all we have for, I'm assuming everyone else that has asked the question just hasn't lowered their hand at this point.
Hi, this is Win. I had another quick question, if I may.
Yeah.
This may be a dumb one, but if you could show me on screen what is the closest point that the building approaches the road along Neck Road? How many feet from the edge of the road is the building?
Yeah, so yeah, sheet 3 right there. Yeah, this thing's not responding.
36.1,
Yeah, looks like 36.8.
Yeah.
36.
Yeah.
Sorry, did someone answer?
36.1 is the answer.
From the edge of the road to the building?
Yeah, you can see that right there. There's a 25-foot town right away and then the 36.1 on the left of the screen.
But I guess on the.
Yes, for Neck, so.
Oh, for Neck.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair.
We're much closer to Center Bridge. That's where we're actually close.
Oh, sorry. And on Center Bridge, what's the closest point?
35.9.
No, that's the Center.
Oh, 11.2 it looks like.
Oh, if you go from the porch, it's 5.5 to the property line and then.
Yeah, you got the porch.
From the edge of the porch to the property.
Yeah, from the edge of the porch to the property line is 5.5 and then that's not called out, but that looks like. If it's scaled to another 6 feet-ish, 7.
Yeah, that's a usually.
But you're on 25.
Yeah.
So the closest point is really 5.5 feet from the edge of the side of the road to the porch, right?
That's not the side of the road, that's the side of the property line.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then there's.
This is the property line here. This is the edge of the road here.
I see. So 15 feet or so?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, we'll say right close to 20 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so.
Martha Moore. I had one, two comments, questions.
Okay.
Go ahead. Okay, Martha Moore, 131 Center Bridge Road. Does the town, through DPW or through the developer, have access to any reports on the efficacy of porous concrete? Just a question. And in terms of conditioning the permit, I'm not sure Lancaster, because it is a small town, has enough employees to cover all these permitting conditions. That would be a full-time job, I think. to get that done and to keep up with it so that these properties, I think we've already run into trouble in a couple of different areas, but I won't mention those. So it's going to be very difficult for the town to keep up and make sure these things are maintained properly. That's all. And thank you for your time.
Hey, this is Bethany with Haley Ward. I can comment on the porous pavement. It's very effective. Oh, do you want me to continue?
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
Porous pavement is very effective. It's a great solution for stormwater. It does promote really effective infiltration. The issue is it can become clogged very easily, particularly if you use sand to manage the ice in the wintertime. So the management plan and making sure that that porous pavement gets essentially vacuumed on a regular basis is really essential to keep it functioning. But if it's functioning properly, it really is, it works very well.
Lee, have your, did you have one more question or are you all set? And guys, I appreciate everyone's comments. It's going to be 9 o'clock. We've all been here for a couple hours, so we do have one more meeting in May and then in June to wrap this up. So there will be more time for public comment. So I'm respectful of everyone wanting to add their comments to this, but
I just had a couple of points to do. I'll keep them quick.
okay,
You offered before, so I'm taking you up on it.
that's fine. Yeah, fair enough. I did. I'm gonna hold you to 3 minutes.
Yeah, no, I'll do that one.
Fine.
Just kind of, harping on, I think some of your own concerns about, safety of the children, the lack of any space to do much on the site. It's not only the roadways, there's also, as some people have mentioned over the course of the meetings, there's two, cargo rail crossings, like a house or two away from here. I'd encourage you guys, I don't know that any of you attended the site visit. I think it was Matt Morrow was on the board who attended that. But I would encourage you to, go probably past that site pretty often, just living in town, but get out, walk the site, walk the border of the site and see, exactly what we're up against with this in mind. The proximity to the road, the railway for kids to literally have nowhere to go. It's certainly against, Lancaster's affordable housing plan, what they have in mind for affordable housing development in the town. I think it's something to keep in mind that it's really a terrible blueprint for a rural town to have this. As a marker in town and a blueprint for further development in the town. Obviously this town is well under the state's mandated threshold. So, something like this goes through. Here comes the next one, here comes the next one. You go from having a historic district to a 40B district in town. And that can happen pretty quickly. The way this is set up and the way this blueprint's being, put together. I think, I just want you guys to keep that in mind, right? Because beyond what everyone's discussed, it really is that this is a blueprint for further development and something that I think everybody in the community is kind of counting on you guys to make sure this gets built at a much smaller scale. With that in mind, and the only other thing I was going to touch on too was just that we didn't really bring this up. Maybe we had a bigger fish to fry tonight, but I know they did submit a lighting plan. I wasn't really sure if they talked about, lights being dimmed or turned off at a certain hour, but hopefully that's at least specified or written into the plan. And on top of that, I kind of noticed in the lighting plan, it's a little misleading because they only showed the luminance of the spotlights outside, but these are large 3-story buildings, like a small hotel on the side of the road with lots of windows. They don't really show the light up of, I don't even know how many windows are in, probably 70 between all the different buildings. So just a cascade of light that's kind of put on that, small area and into the abutters. It's not just the 3 or 4 spotlights they're showing. There's a number of windows too. But I think we'll have more stuff to talk about
in further meetings, including the MIPA review. I think somebody brought that up and that was kind of cast aside, but I'm not so sure that that's not applicable for a, half acre lot in this type of project. So, hopefully that's explored a little bit further in future meetings. Thanks. Thank you.
Right. In terms of next steps.
I would like to know if before our next meeting, is it possible for you to go out and put stakes for the location of all three buildings on the property, the corners, so people can visualize, people can actually see it on the ground?
We can discuss that and consider that. I'm sure, I don't know what kind of expense it would be to survey that. Just speaking, I think we've submitted a lot of information for a letter unit project. This has been thoroughly reviewed. A lot of these comments about traffic and parking, you have the two best traffic engineers in the state looking at this project between the S and NDM. And you got to look at their conclusions. I know everybody has, comments about that, but we have to rely on the comments of the peer review. But to your comment, yeah, sure, I would talk to my client about potentially staking out the property so that you can get a visualization. But we really feel like we've gone over and beyond what the requirements are for a project this size.
So we've got the fence under 6 feet tall, right? And we had talked about adding sight lines, and we added the sight line, the nice sight line triangle, which is nice on Neck Road and Center Ridge. But I think that driveway and that sidewalk right there, you're showing the fence go right up to it. That's gonna be a pedestrian safety, because you're not gonna see it, and with that driveway. So I think taking a look at that sight lines from both your property and how that fence is gonna affect the neighbor property, you need to see sidewalk and intersection, it's gonna be important.
Yeah, we can certainly.
Sure, give that to you now instead of next time.
I think putting the stakes out is a good idea to give some people a heads up. It might be a benefit to you to put it there.
Yeah,
People can look at it. I don't think it's gonna be a.
You can look at this all
I
the
mean, if you're
time.
gonna say no, I mean, that's gonna.
You know what,
way.
because I think the lot is bigger than it perceives on the plan.
And if you put the stake there, that'll show that the lot is a lot bigger.
But you're not sitting on the sidewalk, you're not sitting on the road.
Not everybody's conditioned to reading plans or
Right.
deciphering what it could be.
Yeah.
Fair enough, yeah,
There's no that wrong, so it might be hard to see the stakes at eye level.
And that's a difficult thing to do.
Paint them orange.
It's not fun to follow.
Yeah, we used to,
With John.
orange paint, no, he does. So we have what, 2 more meetings before we have to end this, Adam? Or we have 1 more and then we have,
One.
oh, yeah.
My recollection, and I'll defer to Brian, because I know he's calculated the time, so I think you have 2 more meetings left before you hit your 180 day deadline. And I guess I'll caveat that by saying 2 things. First is, I think we're making good progress, so I don't think you need additional time. I'm not suggesting you do. If you're getting close and you need additional time and you're working toward, particularly if you're working toward an approval with conditions, I'm sure the applicant will bring you the additional time if it's reasonable. Second of all, is once you close the public hearing, you have an additional 40 days to go ready. So we don't have to make a decision within 180 days to close the public hearing, at which point no additional evidence can be taken on the record. But you then have an additional 40 days to meet as often as you need to work through the conditions of approval or the basis for denial, whatever you decide to do. But you have this 40 days beyond the closing hearing.
So, but we still need the DPW, we still need the fire department, police department, and conservation. Or you think we're okay? That's back in your pocket. Okay. So we.
Planning department, what's going on?
Oh, planning department wants to comment too?
Yeah, well, that's the stormwater requirements.
Yeah. Okay, so we still need those 4 to come in before we close. Yeah.
Right, I mean, need versus request, right? So I mean, the way the 40B process works in terms of what the statute requires is you provide notice upon receipt of the application to those boards or departments and they have an opportunity to comment. They're not obligated to. In many communities, they don't. With a project of this sort, and it's not the largest project, but it's a dense project and it's in an area of the town where it's visible. I can see why you would want feedback from those departments. I feel like I'm sort of singing the same tune, but I've been saying for a few meetings now, we got to sort of be proactive as a board and staff to reach out to those bodies if they're not providing comment and say, you know, please get us your feedback, because otherwise you may not like the outcome if you're leaving it in our hands and we're not particularly experienced in planning matters or conservation matters or board of health matters or whatever it might be. And then you work with whatever information you have. But I think making that progress between now and the next meeting is important because that's going to be your last shot at it for the next meeting. You don't have what you need because you're going to be there and pushing it down.
So, Rob, can we make sure that we get fire, police, DPW, planning board?
Yep.
Do we need anything?
Perfect job. Keep an eye on that, trying to get the comments.
All right, well, we need it by the next meeting, so.
I think I can reach out to each of those individuals as the
Yeah,
chair.
yeah. Do we need anything from sewer?
I was just gonna say, what are we doing with sewer?
Because the last meeting, they came and said they were doing a study for 2 years or something and.
Are we approving this on part of them, or are we?
So
Here we go, yeah.
let me address a couple of things there. So the first is, yes, reach out to those various boards or departments. Another thing you can do if you feel you need it, and sometimes boards do, sometimes you don't, depending on the topic, but you know, it may be simple enough to say, reach out to the police and get a letter, but maybe that letter raises more questions. Maybe you have, you know, maybe you want to engage in a dialogue. Well, then it's helpful to have a representative from the department present. So you can also invite those department representatives to your next meeting to be able to engage in that dialogue. I don't know that every department, you have feedback from Concom, you know what they said, it's not their jurisdiction. You may not need a Concom rep here, but maybe you want the police chief or representative, fire. I know we had one of them present at an early meeting.
Yeah, fire, police chief was part of that.
So that's on those issues. On sewer, so to answer your question about what's within your purview, so I had referenced the way that we had handled this in the context of Goodrich Brook Estates, and I know that the applicant's counsel is aware of it. Actually, city council, same firm represented the applicant in that case. And the way that we addressed it is we acknowledged that it was within the purview of this board, like it or not, to actually issue the connection permit, but that you had no authority, and it continues to be my position. It was the advice I gave then, it's the advice I give now, that you have no authority to act on behalf of the sewer district as regards their obligation under contract, specifically that administrative consent order we discussed as it relates to the available capacity. That's governed by that contractual agreement. You can't modify that contract as a ZBA. You're performing a regulatory function, not a contractual function. So what we did with Goodrich Brook Estates is this board determined that it was going to issue that connection permit, allow the connection, subject to the district determining if there was available capacity and doing whatever it needed to do to issue a permit for the use of that capacity. And in that case, it was simple or simpler, simple is the wrong word, simpler, because the district, if I recall, had said, you can do I-9, if you do enough I-9, you can gain the capacity that you need. It sounds like in this case, and I'm probably simplifying this, but my recollection of what was said a few meetings ago is there's not enough I-9 necessarily to be done to create the capacity that's needed because we're sort of in dire straits, even worse than we were in 2018 when Goodrich Brook Estates was before you. So the issue then is, okay, what does that mean? Well, they said, well, it means we're doing a 2-year feasibility study, and then after that study's done, well, that's going to be on the applicant to work with the district. The bottom line is the capacity exists or it doesn't. Right. They can't connect without the capacity. And that's really on them, and there's not much you can do about it because you can't alter the contract with the state. Okay. So that's how I would recommend if you opt to grant this comprehensive permit. That's up to you. But if you do opt to grant it, that's how I would recommend you issuing it. Same way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you get the comments back from planning, fire, DPW, regularly reach out, send communication, invite them to that meeting.
Invite them to the next meeting.
Yeah.
Are we gonna try to do the next meeting on the 16th, or are we gonna do it on the 23rd?
So it's, yeah, we have one member may not be able to do the 23rd.
I can't miss that one, I already missed one.
You missed one.
You can't miss
I
it.
can do the 23rd, I'm just gonna have to do it remote. Keep my fingers crossed, I can figure it out.
Would it be easier if we switched it to the 16th? Would you be able to make it on the 16th?
I just wanna make sure we have, you know, I mean, you asking for people for time to get more
Yeah.
comments, and I just wanna allow
But the
more,
16th is
make sure we have enough time for comments.
4 weeks.
Yeah,
3 weeks?
3 weeks. Would the applicant be, to that?
I think it's up to the board. We're happy with either date. Obviously, you can pick any date you want.
Yeah.
We'll be available to it. I mean, it doesn't even have to be the 23rd or 16th, if there's another day, we'd be available to that too.
Is that more?
So both, I'm free both days, so.
Like I said, I can do it, it's gonna be over Zoom.
Yeah, but it's easier to be here.
Be safer.
It would be safer if I lose my connection up there.
Yeah, then, yeah.
Okay.
It wouldn't be so bad if I missed the meeting.
Yeah, so move it to May 16th, 7 p.m.
Yeah, I think it's.
Third, I could have a heart attack too, to be honest with you.
Okay, so the 16th works for you
So
too.
I think I have to face the next day, so we're good to go there, so.
Okay, so next meeting will be May 16th
Yeah,
at 7
make sure
p.m.
Brian knows that.
Brian.
because-
So we're gonna move the next meeting to May 16th at 7 p.m.
We got a couple, we got times, there were public hearings scheduled for the 23rd. We try and get that, change that to the 16th, I think we still have time to do that, so.
Yeah, we saw they're amenable to it. Yeah, then
I think that's the only application we have so far, other than.
yeah.
I just said, yes, this question of policy for that. If. Well, okay. That's really good.
No, we do. You can start to close, we can second.
Yeah. I guess we can talk to that applicant and see if if they don't do it, if again, the posting time doesn't, work, they're even amenable to it. I think they'll be okay.
Even if it's only that one hearing on the 23rd, it would be kind of quick to just come in and out. So
Yeah.
2 weeks in a row. We can do it with 4 members. So by then we might have another member, right? Yeah.
We will have
It's likely we'll have
we'll
another
have-
member after Monday night. So, yeah.
So yeah, I can find some years.
Yeah.
So let's do May 16th, 7 p.m. here
Okay.
for 13 Neck Road. And then talk to the applicant for the other one that's on the 23rd. Or if we could just, we could just do it on the 23rd.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that too.
Fine, I'm fine with it, if you guys are fine with it.
Yeah.
Doing the
Yeah, 2 weeks in a
23rd.
row is fun.
Yeah.
So Brian,
Two forever instead of one month.
don't even worry about moving the Middle Street one, leave it, we'll have 2 meetings.
Okay. Yeah.
If not, we'll still have 1, 2, 3. We'd still have 4. And then if one you can call it, it's 23rd. Yeah.
Yeah, one person calls and it should be relatively. But
Yeah. Right.
okay,
You wanna
so continue this meeting. So do I have
make
a
a
motion to
motion to
continue?
continue the 13 Neck Road to May 16th at 7 p.m.
Do we have a second? Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Go roll call vote. Frank Sullivan. Gene Rich.
Yes.
Eric Jacobowitz.
Yes.
Dennis Hubbard.
Yes.
Rob Alex, yes. Any other items before the board?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second by Gene, second by Eric. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none.
Yes.
Frank Sullivan, Gene Rich.
Yes.
Eric Jacobowitz, Dennis Hubbard.
Yes.
Rob Alex, yes. 9:24, we are adjourned.
All right.